All right, welcome back to ABA Exam Review and the continuation of our BCBA practice question series, where we're going through another set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Be sure to check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. When you pass your exam, please let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. A behavior technician is really excited to see her supervising behavior analyst so that they can report how well the client has been doing. The technician tells the supervisor about all the progress that the client has made over the last 2 weeks. Instead of getting excited, the analyst says, "I'd like to see these changes for myself first." What assumption is the analyst most relying on? We have an assumption question. And always in an assumption question, we want to be very precise and very specific. And we don't want to mix up our assumptions with our dimensions. Let's first evaluate what is happening in this scenario. We have a technician who's very excited because they believe the client has been doing very well. The technician tells the supervisor, and instead of getting excited, what does the supervisor say? They say, "I'd like to see these changes for myself first." Now, should the supervisor get excited? Maybe that's not what the question is about. So we're not worried about that part. Only worry about what the question is asking you. Question is asking, what assumption is the analyst most relying on? And the question is concerned with the idea that the analyst says, "Well, I'd like to see these changes for myself first." As behavior analysts, we always want to directly observe behaviors of interest. Indirect observations, indirect measurements are not enough. It's great that the technician believes that the client has made a lot of progress, but the supervisor can't do anything. They can't make any decisions unless they see it for themselves. So what does the analyst want to do? Or what is the analyst relying on? A, empiricism. Yes, empiricism means you're observing it. And the analyst wants to go in and use observation to verify what the technician is saying. So this is very empirical of the analyst. What about B, selectionism? Selectionism has to do with how behaviors are chosen and how behaviors continue. So typically with selectionism, we might talk about ontogenic behaviors, phylogenetic behaviors, meaning learning history, genetics. We're not really talking about selectionism here. What about determinism? Determinism says everything happens for a reason. The universe is lawful and orderly. There's not a question of a certain behavior here and whether it was determined or not. The technician is speaking very broadly about this progress, which the analyst wants to see for themselves. And then D, analytic. What's wrong with analytic? Well, analytic is not an assumption. It's a dimension. And I threw it in there because we need to be sure we separate the two. The 7 dimensions and our assumptions are 2 different ideas. So if the analyst wants to see the changes for themselves first, the analyst is being very empirical. The analyst is relying on empiricism. Malin is looking for a phone downstairs. She asks her boyfriend if he has seen it, and he looks at the pillows on the couch, so Malin goes and checks to see if her phone is there. What is the most behavior analytic explanation for why Malin checked the pillows? Whose behavior are we looking at? We're looking at Malin, and she is checking the pillows. What is the question asking? It's asking to give a behavior analytic explanation. Notice how we approach these questions. We simply break them down and start asking ourselves questions. What do we know? What is the question asking? We know the question is asking about a behavior analytic explanation for Malin's behavior. What do we know so far? Malin is looking for her phone. She asks her boyfriend if he has seen it, and he looks at the pillows on the couch. As a result, Malin checks to see if her phone is there. So the question wants to know, why did Malin check the pillows after her boyfriend looked at the pillows on the couch? A, that behavior has been reinforced in the past when someone looked at the pillows when her phone was lost. A is a very good behavior analytic explanation for why Malin would check the pillows. If in the past, when Malin lost her phone and someone looked at the pillows and she found her phone, then in the future, it's very likely for Malin to do this again. A is a great explanation, a very behavior analytic explanation for why this might have happened. What about B? Because we never stop at the first answer. We always read all of our answer choices. B, that behavior has been punished in the past when someone looked at the pillows when her phone was lost. What's wrong with B? Well, if the behavior was punished, Malin would not have done this, right? She would have not looked at the pillows because punishment would have reduced this behavior and it would not have happened again in the future. C, Malin knew her phone was under the pillows. Knowing her phone was there is not as nearly as behavior analytic as A, where the behavior was reinforced in the past. It's going over learning history. A is much more behavior analytic than this idea that Malin knew, quote unquote, her phone was under the pillows. And what's even worse is D. Malin's boyfriend knew the phone was under the pillows. Well, what does Malin's boyfriend knowing the phone was under the pillows have to do with Malin checking the pillows? Nothing. That's not a behavior analytic reason for why Malin would check the pillows in response to someone looking at the pillows. The best answer here is A. The behavior has been reinforced in the past when someone looked at the pillows when her phone was lost. You, a behavior analyst, are observing one of your clients at their school. During recess, the teacher walks up to you and starts a casual conversation where she is asking questions about the client's personal history and medical history. As an analyst, how should you respond? This is a privacy question. It's an ethics question. So let's attack it. We are the analyst, and we need to respond to this teacher. Now, there are a bunch of different ideas in play. We're at this school. We need to collaborate. We need to be a team player. But we also have to protect the privacy of our client. So what do we do if we're in observation and the teacher at recess starts a friendly conversation and starts asking about these personal and medical histories? How do you respond as the analyst? A, politely answer each question in order to establish rapport and encourage collaboration. Very important you establish rapport. Very important you collaborate with other stakeholders. But we've got to be careful. Why? Well, personal and medical history are the client's private information. What do we need to know first before we start giving that information out? B, politely decline the answer to these questions as to not share the client's private information. Okay, B is better than A. B is safer than A. But at the same time, what if the teacher has permission? What if she's gotten consent to get this information? We need to determine that first before we make a decision. So C, determine first if the teacher has permission to access this information before giving out the information. In ethics, we never want to be too strong or too weak on an issue, right? And we want to go by the letter of the law, what our code says. And so we want to collaborate, but we want to protect the privacy at the same time. How do we do that? Well, easy. We first determine, does that teacher have consent for this information? If they do, fantastic. You can have a conversation about it. If they don't, maybe you can work with the teacher on getting that consent. Both ways you're collaborating, in both ways you're still protecting the privacy of the client. D, attempt to avoid these type conversations in the future if you are there just to observe. No, it's a good thing, right? Try to build relationships with other stakeholders. Try to build relationships with other therapists and teachers and educators. Collaboration is so important, and we don't do it enough. But in this particular case, when it becomes a consent and a privacy issue, as the analyst, you want to first determine if the teacher has permission to access the information before actually giving out the information. Evaluate each of the following scenarios. In which scenario would it be most inappropriate to use a behavior chain interruption strategy? All right, the question is asking about the BCIS, behavior chain interruption strategy. That is when we take a behavior chain, we interrupt it at some point to try to evoke a new behavior. And the question says, when would it be most inappropriate? Meaning one of these is going to be the wrong time to interrupt that chain. Normally, we wouldn't jump to our answer choices, but in this case, it's telling us to evaluate the scenarios. So let's do that. A, Joanna was taught how to prepare her lunch using a backwards chaining strategy and can now prepare her lunch by herself in the morning. This seems like an appropriate time. Joanna's mastered the skill. She can do it by herself in the morning. Now would be an okay time to start interrupting that chain to try to evoke these new novel behaviors. What about B? Craig learned how to tie his shoes using a forward chaining strategy. Craig has the essential steps mastered, but will struggle with looping the laces at times. All right, so Craig has the essential steps down, but still struggles at times with looping. Can we use a BCIS there? We can. It's maybe not ideal, but as long as the essential steps are mastered, you are safe to use a behavior chain interruption strategy. What about C? Danny is about to start learning a new process for entering data into his company's data software using a total task chaining procedure. When we shouldn't use a behavior chain interruption strategy is when the steps are not mastered or when the essential steps are not mastered, and especially when chaining first begins. We want to teach the chain first to mastery or as close to possible as mastery, where at least the essential steps are known, and then we can start using a behavior chain interruption strategy to encourage new behavior. So C seems most inappropriate. D, a behavior chain interruption strategy could be used for any one of these scenarios. Well, that's just not true. We don't want to start interrupting chains before the essential steps are already known. We want to wait for the essential steps to be mastered, and then we can start using our BCIS. What brand or approach to behavior is often said to restrict the knowledge base of human behavior and discourage innovation in the science of behavior? It's kind of a teaching question to end things, right? Just kind of a refresher on how we view the different branches, the different ideas of behavior. Question is asking about the brand or approach which restricts knowledge and then discourages innovation in the science of behavior. Pretty harsh words, right? So, what are we talking about with these relatively harsh ideas? A, experimental analysis of behavior. Well, no, experimental analysis of behavior is what Skinner used. It's what many animal behaviorists use these days. Nothing wrong with EAB. What about B, behaviorism? Behaviorism, think about it as the umbrella, the overarching theory behind behavior. When we think about things like C and D, radical and methodological behaviorism, those fall under the idea of behaviorism. Radical behaviorism is what shapes modern ABA. It's what Skinner pioneered, where we look at public and private events. The words or the ideas about this brand restricting knowledge of human behavior and discouraging innovation is typically safe for D, methodological behaviorism, because it ignores private events. And without private events, we can never fully capture human behavior. Thank you for watching. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. We also have RBT materials on our channel and on our websites. Be sure to check those out. Make sure you subscribe for all of our updates. When you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.